Valley Bible Church. Hello, good day. Not good morning, good day, because it could be any time of day when you're watching this. Welcome to Snowmageddon, right? We've had, I guess it's more like Ice-mageddon. Not that much snow, but tons of crispy, crunchy, hard ice. So we don't know when you'll watch this, but we thought it would be fun to do something so we can be together in some form or another, via video. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna spend some time together. I'm Brett Johnson, lead pastor, one of 7 elders.
Josh Rothschild.
I'm always afraid when I say his last name that I'm gonna say like Rothschild. So you do pronounce the S.
I do pronounce the S.
It's efficient. It's Rothschild.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm doing it? Okay.
You got it.
I'm always afraid I'm going to forget a part. Anyway, so Josh is with us. So we'll do some get to know you with him as well. But we are going to get into Hebrews 11, talk a little bit about faith. Had some great discussion. Had some people kind of send in some questions. I reached out. So we'll do some of that. So Josh, where are you from? Kind of like, and how'd you get here? Maybe we can do that in part A, part B question. So where are you from and how'd you get to the NRV?
Yeah, well, from Northern Virginia originally, from Fairfax, proud Fairview Elementary graduate.
Whoop, whoop, Northern Virginia, baby.
That's right. And I went to Robinson.
The Rams?
The Rams. Yeah,
that's right.
Same color scheme.
That's right. Yellow
Rams.
and blue.
Yep. Went to Tech. That's where I met Amanda. She is from Christiansburg.
Do you know her high school mascot?
The Demon Deacons. That's why actually part of our call to come to
okay,
this place.
So it's to help redeem.
The
They need
yes.
they need help. It's true. Yeah.
But yeah, I was in college, biology undergrad degree, so that's working out great for me. Right now.
Yeah, perfect transition to ministry.
And was sort of wrestling. I was very involved in crew. Was growing a lot. Really enjoyed leadership, discipleship, all that stuff. And was trying to figure out what a call to ministry looked like. My dad's a doctor. There's no ministry in my family tree, and so at least vocationally. And so then we, both Amanda and I interned at a church in Northern Virginia.
In Fairfax?
In McLean.
Okay.
And to try to figure out, is ministry a viable thing? And
that didn't really work out, I guess, huh?
Well, the funny thing is I was thinking about interning with crew, but I didn't want to raise support. And so then I did this internship because they would pay us.
He basically wimped out.
Yeah.
So
well,
just if you don't know, that means he wimped out.
I ended up raising support for starting the college ministry at Sojourn, and now we're doing it again for the church plant.
Right. So you took the long way.
Yeah, took the long way. And so anyways, we did the internship, realized we did want to do ministry, also realized I didn't know how to do ministry. And so if you don't know what to do with your life, you always just go get another degree.
More degrees.
And so we moved out to Louisville for seminary. Along the way in Louisville, we had our 4 kids. We have Caroline, who is almost 11, which is a little crazy for me. Wells is 8, Cam is 6, and Clara is 11 months old. So full house.
A lot going on.
A lot going on.
A lot of moving parts. So actually, and some of you VBCers may not know this, but actually, I'm not too dissimilar. I finished college and went back to Northern Virginia and interned with a ministry up there. Same type of deal. And I was like preaching sermons to things and being like, I don't think I know what I'm talking about. I need help. So then I went to seminary.
I still feel like that.
Yeah. I mean, I still feel like that way too. So, okay. So I got where'd you come from? Let's see. What is an interesting fact that we would want to know about? It could be whatever, like about you, about the family, like what's something interesting about you? And if it's not interesting, I'm going to make fun of you because it needs to be interesting.
Yeah, like non-ministry or job related, I enjoy biking. So I used to enjoy running, lifting. I know you can tell, like my frame is like a guy who lifts a ton.
All the time.
But I have a degenerative disc issue in my back, and so I took up road biking, and so I really enjoy that. One thing I'm really excited about is the Huckleberry Trail in the mornings. Haven't been able to do that yet. A little cold, a little icy, but really excited about that. Enjoy fly fishing. Not super good at it, hoping to get better at it.
It's not called catching.
It's called fishing.
It's called fishing, right.
But I think something about just being out in a stream with nobody around, You just kind of hear the song of the birds and you hear the stream. It's like, there's something deeply restful for my soul. And I don't even have to catch fish.
Yeah.
I don't know if I tell myself that for when I don't catch fish to make myself feel
You're
better.
like, oh yeah, you're not gonna catch every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
That's what inadequate fishermen say to themselves.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
right.
That's
I am
right.
an inadequate
I
fisherman.
fought the temptation because I said it had to be something interesting, and then when you said biking, I was gonna be like boring, but no, then I decided not to. I
I
decided
like to
against
go in one direction for 10 miles.
I'm kidding.
20 miles.
Biking is interesting. Yeah, and fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. I had two other questions. I think it was two other questions. Okay. So give us, again, this is get to know you, and we don't want to just give all the light, easy stuff. So give us one hard thing that you've been navigating last couple years, something you want to share, and then something you're and we'll kind of finish the Josh section, and something you're excited about before we get into the text.
Yeah. Yeah, I think since moving here, it's been challenging. I'm a routine guy. I like to kind of have my mornings, know what I'm doing, kind of similar things. And yeah, moving kind of blows all of that up. And so I think in my mind, I thought, I was aware that was going to happen. I was aware routines were going to get blown up. And I thought because I was aware, I would be fine. But I have just experienced, it's just there's no thing that is wrong or bad, but I just, my body is experiencing, the first couple of weeks was just stress.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it's just an interesting, you can, just because you know something about yourself and you know what to expect, it doesn't change the fact that, I am, a creature of habit, and I've had to adjust to that. So I think that's been challenging.
Things being disheveled.
Layered on top
around.
of that is your kids' rhythms and schedules are all out of sorts, and so excited to. I feel like this week and last week were sort of getting into more of a rhythm, and then the snow came, and then that all kind of went out the window.
Everything, up in the air, blue. And then one thing you're excited about.
Yeah. I mean, since we've been here, we have really enjoyed getting to know the people here at the church. Enjoyed spending time with the people we already knew, and then also spending time with people that we are just getting to know.
Mm-hmm.
I think the idea of, and I want to, take the residency and the preparation for the plant kind of one step at a time. I don't want to get too far ahead. But just thinking and dreaming about, and this is something you've experienced with Planting Valley, it's this idea of having people that you love dearly, locking arms with people that you care about and who care about you, to start a new work, and to feel like the Lord is calling you and us to do something together. This is not like a Josh and Amanda thing. This is a communal a calling that I think the Lord has called us to this place, but I think he's also called other people in this church to this thing, and maybe they don't even know that yet. And so I think what I just get really excited about is watching the Lord bring together a group of people to do a task, join him on mission, seeing him, his spirit, how he's gifted people, them to deploy that for his glory and to reach the community. Just to be part of something like that and to see the Lord work in a new, fresh way, I think is really, really exciting. So I'm excited about that.
Well, and we get excited, for as a pastor, I get excited to have our people wrestle that out, right? That I think you can kind of get stuck as a church, kind of just doing the things, and so this is an opportunity for us as a church to reimagine mission, sending. Right, we're here to make Christ known in the valley, not just do church in Radford, the way we've done it for however long. So it should, for us, be a healthy, exciting thing as well. Though it'll probably be uncomfortable at times, but it'll be good because it's going to help us think about the same things as a community, which I'm personally excited about, and think it'll be good. So awesome. All right. Well, we're gonna get into. Thank you. So part of the goal here is for you guys to get to know Josh some and Amanda some. So hoping you guys will get some time, get a coffee with them, get to know them. So. So we're gonna get into some, Hebrews 11, right, was the last sermon I preached. The idea of faith, right, by faith, What is faith? So this is kind of the text, if you will, in the New Testament that really, I think it's the only one that actually says faith is, and it just kind of gives a definition of kind of the nature of it. So we thought it would be kind of fun, since you're going to be doing the second half of 11 if we ever gather again. If we ever get together again in person, which hopefully will happen, as it's snowing right now outside. When we get together again, he's hoping to get to that second half, right? What is it, verse 15? Where's it pick up?
I'll be picking up in 32.
Oh, that's right, 32. So 32, it talks about, what more shall I say? This great section. So, when I told him, like, hey, take whatever you want from Hebrews 11 and preach it, he took that. I was like, that's what I would preach. It's fantastic. So there'll be stuff in there about suffering, all sorts of things. So some of the questions that people lob to us, we won't get to, because you're going to probably directly deal with that in your text.
He said, Josh, you take it.
You take that.
Take the hard stuff.
You answer those hard, impossible to answer questions. So, but faith, this is a great discussion, and I actually think as much as we talk about faith, I actually think is a little tricky. We were talking about this kind of in prep for this conversation. When you start having a discussion of, well, is faith something that comes from God? Is faith something that comes from us? Like, there's this weird, which I think is designed of the Lord to kind of there's some ambiguity of like, yeah, there's this thing that God is doing and kind of offering, and then there's some response there, and there's all this discussion, like, Piper has an article of, is faith meritorious? The nature of faith is a kind of a dicey thing. And so there's this we can punt the whole idea of mystery, right? Where people are like, well, it's mysterious, you can't know, but there is this reality of like, this is one of those places, I think, like in the faith, in following Jesus, I should say, that is tricky, is like, okay, where's my responsibility and where's God's responsibility, and how do those things interweave? And I think it gets a little tricky in there. So anyway, we're gonna talk about that. So I think we're gonna do some kind of volley. I'll throw out some questions, or you'll throw out some questions.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm always curious, and this is kind of a interesting, unique format that I can ask some of this stuff. Is like in your, if you go back to the week before you preached this sermon, I'm curious, like, as you were praying and prepping and studying, like what's sort of like the unique burden or the thing that got you really excited about the text? Maybe it could be for you personally, or it could just be for this church. Like, what was really kind of wind in your sails?
So the thing about Hebrews 11 that strikes me is whatever's happening, right? You get this definition of faith is the assurance of things hoped for, right? It's the evidence, if we look at it's the conviction of things not seen. But when you look at the text, there's a lot of stuff in here about things that people did in response, that whatever was happening with what faith is, there was something tangible enough about it that it got people, I mean, not just off the couch to go, paint a wall or go to the grocery store, but it got people moving. I mean, it drove them to a trust that meant something. It was active. And so for me, the idea of thinking, like, what does the Lord want to do through this text in us as a people to go to be and to do the things he's called us to be as men and women, in our callings, and to actually have the courage because of our faith. I think there's a way to do courage that's just kind of like, all right, I'm going to just kind of buy my bootstraps, just kind of like, I've got to be the brave one. But like, there's a way to do it. It's like, all right, Lord, you've called me to this thing. And I actually think in all these stories, people are afraid. There's like real risk. I think there's nervousness. They're not sure. They're meaning not sure, and like they don't know all the details. They have anxieties and some of those things, but they're trusting God enough to go and to do the things, even when some of those other obstacles, you could call them, to faith, right? Like, would you call, I'm not even sure how I would label this, like, is anxiety like an obstacle to faith, or I'm not sure how those interplay, but they're willing to push through those in order to go do what God's called them because of their faith, their trust in who God is. And so, my thing that kind of gets my blood pumping is the idea of like, okay, what is God doing around me, and am I willing to join him? In that?
It is. I think what you're touching on, this is something that I'm always tempted to default to is to think of faith as simply something that lives in your head, like something I don't want to use the word believe, because I think I mean that differently than what the scriptures mean when they say believe.
Acknowledge or...
Yeah, but something I intellectually agree to or assent to, you know? Because if that is what faith is this just something that I think is true, then it can just stay in my head, and it doesn't require me to reorient my entire life around that thing, which requires us to act and to join what the Lord is already up to. I think as I thought of faith and kind of the dynamics of what biblical faith is and how I tend to default to a kind of a faulty vision of faith, I think of faith as, and you got to this in your sermon, I think faith is like agreeing to truth statements, like we talk about the faith, and so that, you know, that's kind of like we believe that God is triune, we believe that Jesus rose from there are propositional truths that we agree to, and it's also an allegiance to a person.
Yep.
And you talked about that allegiance word I really liked, and it's sort of both an allegiance to a person and propositional truth is the kind of the biblical faith. And if we just have an allegiance to a person but we don't have the propositional truth, that can really easily drift into relativism. And,
Interesting, yeah.
And we can say we have a faith in Jesus, but really what happens is we are still believing in propositional truths, but they're less defined by Scripture and more defined by the culture. And then the flip side is kind of what I was describing, is if we do kind of hold to propositional truth, but we don't have any allegiance to the person of Jesus, then we know that something is true, but we don't feel any urgency to act upon that. And that's just kind of a reductionistic faith.
So I like the categories you're bringing up there, where basically there's the which I think was probably more directly in my thinking when I was preaching the sermon about people who kind of, they agree with kind of like the facts about Jesus, right? Where they say, oh, he's Savior, or he did. So they have the knowledge, if you will. But I like what you're saying is you're bringing up the other category of kind of the postmodern kind of stuff, the kind of relativistic, where there is a way, which is almost the other side, and probably, you know, depending on the generation you're looking at or the group you're looking at, the context, maybe just as dangerous, right? Where you have a Jesus, you know, think about some of the more, what's the word we want to use, progressive kind of, you know, Christian streams, if we can even still call them Christian, where they basically, they talk about Jesus, but then they fill in who he is with kind of a relativistic, I get to define, you know, Jesus is this to me, and then he ceases to be the biblical Jesus, and then they're kind of he just is kind of a, like a mascot for their kind of squishy faith, so that they have some sort of they feel good that they have something that they're, you know, following, but it's really self-construct. They're doing what they want to do. So there's probably both sides. That's a whole other interesting layer I didn't even think about. So
and I think you're right to say, like, if you just have the person and a commitment to the person without the truth that he says is true, to say, like, we don't even that's not Christianity.
Right.
And the flip side is also true, to just say, like, I grew up in the church, I agree to these things, but there's no relational commitment. Like, Jesus is not king of my life, and he doesn't have the authority to tell me what to do, and I'm not submitting to him. The way he feels about certain people is not the way I feel about certain people. I would also say that that's also not biblical Christianity either. You kind of need you need both. And so then some of the questions that we got were like,
I was going to say
how do you grow in faith? I think those are two helpful categories. Like, we can just do, I need to, you know, do sword memory verses and catechism alone is helpful, but also there needs to be kind of the relational depth, the sitting with Jesus in solitude, experiencing his goodness through his people and community, that kind of fosters this courage to act out in faith. We need kind of both of those to grow in faith in Jesus.
Yeah, and you know, thinking about some of the other questions too, like somebody talked about obedience. Like, can you know, what's essentially the question was, what's the relationship between obedience and faith, right? Can you have faith and not obedience? And you're kind of touching on that as kind of a related to that idea that if we are people of faith, then by definition we will be people of, you know, again, biblical faith. If we're doing it the way that I think the scriptures lay out for us, You cannot have an actual faith in the real Jesus and not be an obedient person. Again, even some of the language of, I think it's in Thessalonians, and I'm trying to think where, I think there's a couple other Pauline epistles that use the term obedience of faith, where it's basically like almost like the same. Like if we can only obey and must obey if we are in fact people, that's almost the natural or the necessary byproduct
Yeah.
of if you believe if you believe in Jesus, or really, and we talked about, and maybe we'll get into this in a minute, about everybody essentially has a faith. But if you're a person of faith, part of what determines and kind of it gives you the well, what do I have faith in some sense you could say is the obedience. Well, what are you obedient to? Like what is it it causes in you, and then if you track that back and go, oh, this is what I have faith in because this is what's producing in me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think obedience, obedience and faith, like obedience flows from our faith. We're not called to be obedient to some abstract like moral code. Like we're just supposed to do like the Bible is some rule book of life, and we just are supposed to do the thing, and obedience is doing the thing. Obedience is flowing from a life of faith that we inhabit a story that we have faith in, right? And I think it's an important thing to remember that everybody, like you mentioned earlier, like everybody believes a story, and everybody has faith in that story. The story that we believe is that God created all things, humanity messed it up terribly, and we keep trying to fix ourselves, but every time we try to fix ourselves, we actually make it worse. And the only way for us the only solution is for God to step into our story to save us from our sin. That had to be sacrificed. I mean, and you can upload all of what you have preached in Hebrews, and different people have preached in Hebrews thus far. There needed to be a sacrifice. We need to have access to God. There is a tabernacle, a true tabernacle, that we now have access to Jesus. And because Jesus rose from the grave, he's given us his Spirit. We're now invited to join him in his mission to remake all things. That's the story that we have faith in. Like we have faith that Jesus is the Son of God. He is our Savior, our great high priest. And so obedience is living in light of that. Like it's like, okay, if that is how life is, even though I wake up and everything around me is communicating to me that that's actually not how reality is. Faith is saying, no. Like today, I'm going to orient my life around that story, and that is the good news. But and we can talk about this a little bit. We have competing stories, and so when a lot of times we talk about people leaving the faith, and I think it's more accurate to say is they're just choosing a different faith. Because there are other stories that are trying to explain what our problems are, how do we fix the pain that we experience, how do we give meaning to our lives, who are the good guys, who are the bad guys, how did we end up in this place? We like to have those questions is just to be human,
right? And
we believe that the Bible has a sufficient and a beautiful answer to those questions, but there are competing stories that are always trying to vie for our allegiance and vie for our faith as well.
That kind of raises a couple of questions for me. One is faith a Christian thing? So we talked a little bit about this earlier, but like, the terminology of faith, we have it all through Scripture, and we talk about faith. People we may even say, "Oh, are you a person of faith?"
Yeah.
Right. And so typically, what we kind of often will attach that to is like, "Oh, well, that's a Christian thing." So do you think? What's your thought on is faith a Christian thing, or is that just some like how you respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, in the context of this conversation, I would say faith is a human thing. The question is not if you have faith. The question is what you have faith in, or who you have faith in. Everybody has faith because every worldview, every belief system ultimately is circular in its reasoning. Ultimately, it has to come down to believing in something or someone. And there's also a belief that that thing is going to benefit them in some way, which then gets into like a view on like what it is to be human, what does it mean to flourish as human,
Right.
what's our purpose. All of those questions require faith to answer them.
Yeah.
And so I think everybody has faith.
So, this is one of the things I'd love is kind of applicational questions, and and so make sure I'll put a pin in it here while we're there. Like, essentially, what story are you living in, right? Like, what is the narrative that you're buying into, right? We as followers of Jesus are given, we talk about the gospel is a story, right? It's a telling of the good news. It's a report of a story that has happened that is a true story. And so as Christians, we are literally confessing we believe the story of the scripture. We believe the story of the gospel. And so in some sense, talking to people, they would go, "Oh, well, you have, your story. I don't have a story." I guess what I'm trying to get at is how do we help people, and this is kind of an application question for those listening, how do you figure out what story you're living in? And again, and you don't necessarily have to answer all of that, but are there any kind of like things that would get people going on what are things that I would look at in my life to figure out, am I believing the good news of the gospel? Is that the story I'm buying into? Or do I have another gospel, another good news, another good tale being told to me that I'm kind of buying into? And again, I don't want to put you on the spot in the sense of like that's a big question, but are there any diagnostics you could come up with?
I think that is a hard thing to that's like deep self-awareness, which is like hard to just ask the question.
Hey, no pressure, just answer the small thing.
But I do think a way to figure out one way to discern what we think our biggest problem is to look at our lives of how we're trying to solve that problem. And so you can just kind of look around the world and our valley, and you can see a lot of different approaches kind of to fix our problems. I think culturally it feels like diet is kind of coming there's
Diet's
a moment
definitely big.
And eat these foods, don't eat these foods.
Gut health, it's the new brain.
Gut health.
Your second brain is your gut. I've heard that.
And I don't know much about gut health.
Yeah.
So
well, let me teach you the ways.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I've heard people like, well, you got gut health. There's all these different. You're right. There's these different different types of with dieting as just an example. There's like all these subcategories of different. You got to avoid gluten. You got to avoid sugar. You got to
Yeah. And I think I know. We'll just talk about health.
Yeah.
This category.
While we're on it,
health consciousness, and when it starts to dominate all of your life, right? And when people start to like around you, it starts to like infringe upon relationships and your finances and all these things. It appears that it's like, oh, this is the thing that you believe is going to fix everything, right? I think the way to apply, like to hold that up to the Christian story, is the Christian story. And I use story in the sense of like it's a narrative,
right?
It's
not a
wrong.
fictional tale.
Yeah, it's true. It's a true.
It's
story.
a true story. Correct.
Is the biblical story either says no to these, or it says yes, but you don't go far enough, right? And so I think that's a helpful way to like discern in our own lives or the people that we're interacting with, is that sometimes the story confronts the stories of our culture, and then sometimes the story, the Christian story, is actually a bridge to say, hey, you know what, like I actually agree that is a value, but you don't go far enough to, or you don't have a good enough reason for believing that to be a value.
Yeah.
And so anyways,
yeah.
I think
and that's a hard question. I mean, like basically the question is, how do we figure out what stories we are really holding to, where our faith actually is? I mean, I'm thinking on the fly a little bit here, but like, I think one way to do that is if you take a key piece, let's use the diet one since it's on the table, right? if you had your diet solution, the thing that you think is going to be the thing, and you took that out of your life, and it didn't work, right? Your doctor told you do this thing, and it's going to make your joint pain go away. It's going to make your brain fog go away. You're going to have less lethargy. You're going to be more with it, right? So I'm just trying to give you kind of categories as we think on how to diagnose our stories. If you remove that hope and go, that's not going to work. Like you were told that you had a gluten issue, that's now gone. Are you devastated, or what happens as a byproduct? It's something to think about, to go, how do we diagnose the stories we inhabit in some sense?
Yeah.
Isn't it, I don't know if you have any thoughts on,
Well,
or questions people might be able to ask themselves to figure out.
Well, there's the health story, there's the hustle story, self-actualization, or like the therapeutic story. There's all these stories that we can buy into, and it's the faith of it's the faith in those stories, and obedience to those stories is acting in light of that. And so for Christians, obedience is we are faithful in our marriages, or we share our faith with people, or we fight lust, and we pursue all those examples of obedience are not abstract. These are some floating principles of what's right or wrong. These are no. If Jesus rose from the grave, this is how people who believe that act. And sin is not acting in light of that. And confession is saying, you know what, I blew it. I didn't live faithful to that story, but I really do believe that that's true. And I don't want to live contrary to that, because the deepest core part of who I am believes that no, Jesus is alive and well. He cares about me. He sees me. He's invited me into his mission. And I don't, sin is contrary to that, and I want to live in allegiance to him.
Well, and this is this is from one of the questions we got, which I think is a great question. So were you catching your breath? Just want to make sure you.
Oh. No.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I didn't want to cut you off. So if we're believing that story, right? We're saying we believe in Jesus. We have faith in him. So we're walking with him, and then essentially some pretty massive disappointments happen, right? Like we believe on him, and then things don't go the way that we want. And so we're thinking that walking with him was going to have certain byproducts to it, right? Like our family was going to turn out a certain way. We were, I'm thinking about my single, brothers and sisters who really want to get married, and then that maybe is not going with the way that they wanted or whatever. How do we, as people who are wrestling with some of these real desires and are facing real disappointments, with real, I think about, physical health. I think about, loss. I think about these really heavy things. How do we, and feel free to punt to say, hey, I'm going to address some of that. And, because suffering, I know, will be a part of the next sermon.
Yeah.
What do we do with some of that?
This will, whether this is aired this Sunday or next week, you'll either have heard this in the sermon, or this will. Right.
And don't feel like you don't have to you don't have to give spoilers if you want to save it.
No, I think it is important, and I think we can't hear these truths too often. So,
right. Yeah.
I put myself in the upper room. This man who I believed he was the Messiah, who was going to usher in the kingdom of heaven. I left my job, my livelihood is gone.
Yep.
The boat that I had, it's not mine anymore.
Yeah, right.
I don't have anything else to go to. I had seen him do incredible things, but just yesterday I saw him hung up on a cross. Right. And he's dead. And now we're all here thinking, what do we do?
Yeah.
I just, if you emotionally put yourself in that position, there is such letdown and disappointment. And God, I did all this stuff, and here we are, what the heck?
Yeah, it wasn't supposed to be this way, yeah.
But for the Christian story, I think the beautiful thing about our version of the story, our faith, the true story, is that it has room for disappointment and pain, but it also believes that that disappointment and pain has an expiration date.
Yep.
Because, as they're in the upper room, they didn't realize this, but the next day Jesus is going to rise from the grave, and I want to be sensitive, because it's like, I don't think saying that there is a resurrection and there will be one day a true and perfect and final resurrection, that doesn't negate the pain that people
Real
will
suffering,
experience and real suffering. But I do think the Christian story says, like, suffering and disappointment has a place here, like in the church, in our story. It also allows us to mourn and grieve as those with hope, because we know, hey, I don't know why this thing happened to me or to you. I do know that Jesus, this is not, he's not skimming over it. I do know he will deal with it.
Yeah.
And I do believe that there will come a day where there will be a resurrection. And I don't know if we'll understand everything at that point or not, but I do firmly believe that on the other side of the resurrection, when Jesus has come and made all things new, I do think there will be a deep and residing sense that the way history has turned has been for the good of his people. He has been made to be glorious as a result of that. So I just think any pat answers for this is why you're suffering, or God works all things, it's like, I think
there's truth.
It is truth, but it feels like it's a shortcut not to deal with the pain that is present. And I think that the Christian story and faith allows us to sit in disappointment and let disappointment run its course through our system. And we are able to let it run its course because we know that our hope is not in us getting over our disappointment. Our hope is in Jesus, the one who holds our disappointment and can get us through it.
Yeah, and I almost, it is an interesting thing to think about. How do we encourage people? Basically, what is our hope in, right? What is our faith in? And to wrestle that out of, am I clinging to something that I really thought was going to be kind of a part of the package that I wasn't promised, giving myself freedom to feel real pain and real loss, and not just wiping it away as oh, it's not a big deal. No, it is a very big deal, but also saying, all right, Lord, how do I rest and trust in your actual promises of what you're actually doing, without kind of putting him to the test, if I want to use that word, without doing that. I think I'm just trying to think of analogies. So a marriage analogy, which marriage analogies always come to my mind, partly because of it's the one place we have in creation where you have this actual covenantal setup where I've promised to not leave. I've promised to stay. And so that's part of why it comes to mind. I part of why I say that is I don't want you to feel like I overuse the marriage analogies.
Talk about Katie all the time.
Yeah, and exactly, in detriment to but I think it's a good picture to wrestle out. So the picture in my mind is, Katie does something or whatever is a disappointment in a certain way. There's something I thought I was going to get. That she was going to bake me chocolate chip cookies every week, or whatever the thing is, and that's probably a little bit too cute for what I'm trying to illustrate, but and then she doesn't do it. She doesn't fulfill that thing that I thought it should be. But then I go back and look at what I committed to, what she committed to, what we agreed upon, what the covenant, and it's there's nothing in there about that. That's not what I signed up for to get that byproduct. But often people will almost have this thing of if I don't get this, I'm out. And it's whoa, that wasn't a part of the deal. And so trying to wrestle that out in our faith to go, what am I actually trusting in? What has God actually promised me? And trying to, and then also giving ourselves freedom to go, no, that's a real disappointment. I'm sad that I don't have that thing, but the heart of what I've been promised is being outlined and told to us, can I have a posture of receiving, man, what is he giving me?
Yeah.
And making sure, and you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think it's hard because when you see other wives making cookies, you're like, what? And so it's like, to make it kind of bring it to just a real, real examples. It's like, man, we've been trying to have a child for years, and I'm in my small group, and everybody's like fertile myrtle over here. You know, it's like rabbits multiplying.
Yeah.
And you're like, what is wrong, Lord? Why don't you answer my prayers?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think faith, kind of back to what we were talking about, like faith, the going to the Lord and expressing our frustrations and our hurt and our pain, the thing that allows us to do that, like one way to do that is a way that I think there's bitterness on our tongue as we pray or as we distance ourselves. There's another way to do it that assumes that we have a heavenly Father who is receptive to us and is present to us. And so going to him and expressing our
genuine sadness,
our
genuine hurt.
We see that all through the Psalms.
Right.
And so I would say, like, that is an act of faith.
Yeah.
You know, to cry out to the Lord with our sorrow and our struggle. At the end of the day, we do say, like, I don't know why the Lord allows some of us to have kids and some of us not to have kids. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I do know that he loves us and he's for us. I don't know why he allows this and that for this couple and not that couple. But I think faith, like what we're saying, it allows us to go towards him. But at the end of the day, we say, Lord, not my will, but yours. You know,
Yeah.
You're God, I'm not.
Yeah. And that often is a hard thing to,
it's super hard.
Often when I'm praying, genuinely praying those type of prayers, it's through tears or through like real hurt, frustration of like, I don't want to be praying, not my will, but your will be done. But I'm in faith going, Lord, I'm real frustrated.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I have an idea of how this could go better, and you're not doing that. And so I don't think that the Lord is angry with us necessarily when we are through tears going like, man, I really thought it was going to be different than this, you know? And I don't see him going, oh, come on, get with the program. I see him saying, yeah, I get it. You know, like this is there's no temptation that we've dealt with. You know, this is Hebrews, right? Where he has dealt with all the weaknesses we have. He has walked in those things. And so we don't have a high priest who's unable to sympathize, you know? I just feel like we got to give ourselves freedom to be a wreck, to be really disappointed, to be really hurt without having to choose, well, it's that or
even like
we trust the Lord, you know?
The specific people that he chooses to include here are all train wrecks.
Yeah, right,
Like you read it, and I think
on your list in particular, it's like you read those, you're like, wait, that
why
guy
did you include that one?
He's like Samson is in your list, right?
Yeah,
where it's like him.
Yeah,
really.
But then you're also like, okay, well, I don't want to include Samson because him and Delilah and. But then you're like, well, who should I include?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, let's flip through, and you're like, kind of everybody in God's story is a train wreck.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
And so I think like that, like the fact, like I had like this week I've sat with Rahab, and just been like, I think when I read that in Joshua of like the spies and Rahab, I'm sort of like, oh, that's cool, you know. But just thinking like, what modern day, if you heard somebody in your small group like went and stayed at a prostitute's house and she was actually part of responding to God's story and what she did, you would be like, there would be some like eyebrows raised, you know? And I think that's kind of the point. It's like God's story is filled with people who raised their eyebrows and are like, them? Like, they're the ones you want to include in your story of redemption, you know? And Jesus's lineage, like if you read Matthew, it's like filled with these people, and it leads to Jesus, who's the only sinless one. He's the only hero, you know? It's just wild who's in this list.
Well, and I think that is meant to encourage us to go, look, I think about, I can't remember who said it, it's probably Spurgeon or somebody, but like, it's not great faith that saves, you know, it's just by faith, we're saved by grace through faith, not massive faith, impressive faith, powerful faith.
Yeah.
No, even little faith, oh ye of little faith, Jesus says to his disciples, those guys end up, as the guys, and so like, I think feeling the freedom to not have a quantity measuring thing, because then we even talk about the gift of faith, right? We see that from Corinthians, where some people are kind of just supernaturally, like you've probably known people like this, and I think I've known some people like this who I got a couple people in mind where it's like you look at their life and you're like, they seem to be great. Like, and they have dealt with substantially more than I probably ever will deal with as far as loss and hard. And you look at them and you're like, I would not react that way. I would crawl up and be a wreck. And they see, and again, not that they haven't wept and had hard, but you're looking at them going like, they're doing, I think, substantially better than I would be doing dealing with the same thing. So my point is that like, we want to take encouragement from people who have done great acts of faith. But we also want to be careful to go like, look, faith, not impressive faith, but to go, Lord, I'm trying to trust you. We had one question in here, was like, is the like the day-to-day little faithful obediences, is that the way to do it, or is it about big like displays of faith? And I would say, to leverage that question, most of what we do in faith is just very tiny, normal things. We pay our bills. I think about like, doing groceries and rising costs. And it's like, Lord, we wish there was a bigger margin here. But it's like, Lord, we're trying to just trust you that and he always has. He's provided for us. And so like, it's just these little teeny, like we're making this purchase and paying this medical bill and doing we're just trying to do it faithfully. And most of what we do in our faith is those types of things.
And the way you become a person who does great things are the person that does little things in faith.
Correct.
Faith,
and this is the Christian life. This is formation, right? Is like, right, like you don't wake up one day and go, oh, I squatted 700 pounds today because I woke up and had this like thought that I would do. It's like, well, no, there was these little teeny incremental little things you did along the way, and then you roll up and this happens to anyone all the time, where you roll up and you see some dude who goes and does something super impressive, and you're like, whoa, man. But that guy didn't just pop there and do, like there's all these little moments along the way. The Lord is prepping us in those things. But I do think we want to be careful. Like I love the quote, finish the race. I know Paul has that part where he says, run the race as one to win the prize. But then, I think he's talking to Timothy later, where he basically just says, look, man, just finish. Just finish. Like, you don't have to win. You don't have to like be Usain Bolt. Like just finish the race. And it's like, okay, like that, so anyway, all that to say, I think that the day-to-day faithfulness really does matter, because there's these little moments, like, I think about like, we've been having a conversation about like pornography recovery, like that moment where of faithfulness where you go, okay, I'm not going to click on that link. Okay, I'm going to put my phone down. Okay, I'm going to, like those little things stack up, like those are important. And frankly, most of what we do in the faith is probably those things. But I think you're right that those are the things that then prepare us. I think about like some of the Bonhoeffer ideals, if you saw the movie, did you get to see the movie when it came out recently? They released one. Anyway, but it's this idea that they come to him after he's done all these kind of small things, and it's kind of mounting at the end of it. And then he's like, they're going to, he gets killed because he's a Christian. Where it's like, well, how does one do what it takes, a lifetime of walking and trusting to go, all right, Lord, I have enough faith to trust you to walk into Nazi, he went back into Nazi Germany on purpose, knowing that he was putting himself directly in harm's way, because like, look, he couldn't figure out any other way to do it. He's like, look, I'm a German, and if the faithful Germans all go to America and leave behind Germany, who's going to fight for righteousness and for good? Yeah. So he went back, and how does he do that? Well, there was a lot of little things along the way prepping him for this like big decision,
So how would you, if somebody asks you like, okay, I want to grow in faith, like I want to be this type of person, like what should I do?
Yeah, push-ups.
Is it something
definitely push-ups?
Is it something that the Spirit just kind of zaps down into my soul, and I
give me a Harry Potter zap? Do
I just pray for it more often? How do we participate in becoming people of greater faith?
Sorry, I was going to try and respond seriously and say gut health. It's all about gut health. You got to eat avocados or not. I don't know. No,
I need to do some gut health.
I'm gonna pray with you about your gut health.
It's always Katie or gut health.
I know, that's right.
Katie's gut health.
Oh gosh, that's funny. Okay, so what do we do in order to grow in our faith? And I think it's probably multifaceted. Like I think most healthy things, if we went back to diet, right? Like the person who's like, just don't eat this one thing. That's not going to make you a healthy person, right? There has to be a diversity approach of like it's going to be multifaceted. But a lot of it is like, okay, like what are the shaping kind of current of our life? You think about a stone that's in a river that's being over the years as being, I mean, have you ever picked up an actual like stone from a river that's been shaped that way? It's wild. You're like, look at this thing. It looks like a machine like sanded this thing, but it just has been in the river that long. That's been, just day after day after day after day, moment after moment after moment. So I think a lot of it is these, and this is what's so hard is like you wake up and you go, well, do I need to read my Bible today? Well, the answer is no. You don't have to, right? And that's true. But the problem is that what's going to come after this morning is tomorrow morning. And then you're going to wake up and go, well, do you need to read your Bible today? Well, no. And that's true. But the problem is you do that, and then years go by. I was thinking about this the other day, and I'm like, man, all of those times where I just like, I don't need to do that. But then you wake up, and it's been 10 years, and you're like, what did I choose to do instead? I was listening to some stuff this week about formation and the idea of, are we being formed on accident or are we being formed on purpose? And to go, like what types of things, basically it's almost like in some sense the Lord is giving us some say into, am I going to let the stream flow over me? And we get to kind of open up the floodgates and go, all right, I'm going to let this pass over me and have a shaping effect on my life. And so what I would want to say is, what are those streams? What are those things? And again, I don't feel bad bullying on like social media, those kinds of things, because there are other things that are like kind of little streams where it's like, okay, like I'll probably do that once or twice a year. So the formative effect on me, probably not a lot, but then there's some things where essentially you're saying, I'm going to do that for 7 hours a day. And this is the realm we're in with social media, right? I'm going to do this for 3 hours a day, 5 hours. Like we're talking huge volumes of water in this analogy that are coming over you on a very regular basis. So to go like, what are the waters that are shaping you? What's in those waters that's then having effect on the smoothness of your stones? Right?
It's the same thing as like everybody has faith. It's just a matter of who or what you're putting.
Right.
Everybody's being shaped and formed.
Right.
It's just what are the forces? What's the river you're putting yourself in?
Exactly right. So trying to wrestle that out to go, all right, how do I, like, what are the formative habits of our lives? We had a lot of conversations the last few years about formative habits, and kind of, so wrestling that out and just going, all right, how do I make sure I have healthy habits and what are the normal rhythmic things that are shaping me? So just, I would say that's the best way to think about what's forming you, what's not forming you. So, I'm trying to think, any other questions that we have? I feel like we've hit on most of the major categories.
I have no idea how long we've been talking.
Yeah, I don't either. So
Neil, how are we doing?
Yeah, we're doing good on time. All right.
Okay.
So I'm checking our notes here, folks. Let's see. You got anything in yours that we
I would say that part of, as we think about formation and growing in faith, is there are habits and things that we do to participate in God shaping us. There are also things that we are purely recipients of, and that would be, I would say, we do spiritual habits and disciplines. But at least in my own life, the seasons where I have grown the most, and I look back, I'm like, oh, that was less incremental growth and more like a jump. Was the seasons that I was suffering the most.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And because
you're not wrong. Yeah.
In those seasons for me, the Lord kind of tore away. I would say, oh, I have faith in God and I am trying to live faithful to His story, but He takes something out of my life that was actually functioning as my Savior. And when that's removed, that's really painful.
Right.
But you cannot grow in your allegiance to Jesus if those things, those idols, remain. And so because God loves us and He cares for us and He sees all of us, He doesn't just rip it all out in one, go when we're like 18 and first start following Jesus, because that would wreck us. What He does is He gently, like a shepherd, He's removing these things along the way. And again, I don't know how, I can't make sense of like God's sovereignty, the sinful fallen world, our suffering, but I do know that like he allows our own sin and the fallenness in the world around us. He's able to leverage that to bring about growth within us.
And that's the Romans 8 stuff, right? Like, all things work together for good,
exactly.
which is not some sort of Band-Aid we just want to slap on somebody who's suffering. But at the same time, I know for me, in my seasons of suffering, I'm listening to that verse going like, all right, he didn't just say the things that I did right and had figured out. He's saying all things work together for good for those who love the Lord.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, because, and you're right, the seasons where I had the most pronounced, like it was in my face that it was either like kind of grow or die kind of feelings, right? Was like, and I look back and I'm like, oh dude, like I wouldn't want to sign up for those, but I wouldn't trade them. Because like I grew, I mean, my life changed. I became a different. I think about the first 2 times I burned out, in ministry, which it's a real thing. Like I burned out 2 separate times for kind of related reasons, but also some different reasons. And each time that happened, when you're like, look, I can't keep going like this. The Lord's going, hey, what are you trusting in? What did you think was going to happen? And not in a mean way, but like, hey, like come, there's a better way. And it was like, okay, Lord, I need you. In a way that I didn't realize I needed you before.
Yeah.
And again, super hard, but also like wouldn't trade it.
Yeah. And what happens is if you have suffered and you have suffered not perfectly but faithfully, and the Lord has gotten you through that, what happens is when you experience suffering in the present or in the future, you can draw upon previous seasons and the disorientation, and you can say like, this feels similar to that time. And the Lord was faithful to me then. And so I don't know what to make sense of the pain that's happening right now, but I do know this, that the Lord does see me and he is going to care for me. And so I think, again, that's how our muscles, our faith muscles are being built through suffering throughout our lives. I just think of, some of the most, and I'm sure it's true for here, the most beautiful souls are the ones that have lived the longest and suffered the most. And I think in some ways to live long is to suffer much.
Yeah.
But they're just sort of, they show up, they're quiet, they're kind, they're filled with love and joy. It's like, man, they're just brimming with the fruit of the Spirit, and you get to know them and they're like, let me tell you about the time. And it's like, man, I don't know if I could do that, but the Lord was faithful to them, and the product, the school of their formation was seasons of deep suffering.
Yeah.
And at the same time, some of the most bitter, jaded, cynical people are also people who have suffered much.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's the difference between these two people? I don't know in the moment of suffering what's the psychology and the state of the soul between the two, but I do know I want to be the people that suffer well. And produce fruit as a result.
Yeah, there seems to be some invitation on those who suffer well of, Lord, let this shape me. Let this be something that works. Yeah, what coming to mind, as we're thinking, probably kind of wrapping this up, what helps, habits is one part of the conversation, but it seems even from our text, from before, from chapter 10, that's where we have the, let us consider how to stir one another up, right? And then we have, I think in the next section you're going to preach after the 11 into 12, talks about the great cloud of witnesses. Am I thinking about that right? So there seems to be community around, people cheering you on, like when you're suffering and I'm alongside of you saying like, hey man, don't give up. I love you. I'm with you. Like, keep going. There's something to the preciseness of not just, the language of let us consider how to stir one another up is not the same as toss a random encouraging word. It's like, no, I'm supposed to like watch your life as your brother and kind of even like strategize. Okay, how can I encourage Josh like right this second to go, hey man, like I got you, which I think, I mean, even to share, you were driving up Charlottesville, right, to love on your pops, and I was like, all right, how can I, how can I come alongside, right? And I'm like, so I sent you, we talked on the phone, I think, I texted you, and I texted Amanda, right? Like again, just a practical thing to just say, hey guys, we're here, we got you. Like, how can we walk with you? And even like I didn't end up having to do anything, but like just you guys knowing, like, okay, well they care, they're noticing we need help,
Yeah, I think our community. This is why it's important to be in a church, not go to a church, not go to church infrequently, but to be rooted in the lives of a church is because it's the community of faith, and the community fosters our faith. We draw, when our faith is weak, we draw upon the faith of the people around us. And the moment that our faith is weak is not the moment to think, oh, I should really join a small group, or
Right.
oh, I should. It's like you need to have those people already, and because you need those people, because they will be in kind of a more explicit, active way, texting you, calling you, say, hey, I'm praying for you. Do you need anything? But also, I think there's this way, and you can't draw a straight line between it, but it's like you become like the people that you spend the most time with. Coming full circle to fly fishing, the reason I got into fly fishing is because one of my closest friends in Louisville, I enjoy spending time with him, and he enjoyed fly fishing, and so I just it was like, oh, you're doing that? That's interesting. And then I started to be curious about it, and then they took me along with them, and now 8 years later, I'm a really bad fly fisherman.
Yeah, and you wear Orvis stuff.
Yeah. And so the thing is, like, he never gave some didactic argument for why fly fishing is a good hobby for me to have. He never even tried to convince me. He was not even saying, like, hey, you should try. I was just friends with him. I enjoyed his company. And that part of him rubbed off on me.
Right.
And so that's why being in the community of faith, the faith of other people rubs off on us. Like, we're formed and shaped by one another. And so I think that's why, like, when he's trying to foster the faith in these Hebrew Christians, he holds up all these examples. And so we need examples in Scripture. We need examples of faithfulness in church history.
Yep.
And we need examples of faithfulness in our present congregation.
Right. Well, this is the do not forsake gathering together. It isn't about legalism of like, well, you got to be at church.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you like, who are you around on a regular basis? And like you said, if you wait to build that exercise when you are really in the hour of need, well, it should be a regular habit before that, because you're not, a lot of times you're not going to see it coming. It's like, just going to, a lot of times it comes out of nowhere and you're like, okay, now I need my people. Because I didn't know that I was going to go to the hospital yesterday, or whatever.
Well, it's like you go to the hospital, the doctor prescribes you medicine. It's like, is it legal? Do I have to take this? Is it legalistic? It's like, no, I need this.
Yeah.
Because if I don't do this, I'm going to get worse.
Yeah.
It's like, do you need to come to church every Sunday? Do you need it? It's like, no, you don't need to. Like, God doesn't love you any less. But like, it's good for you.
Yeah.
And you need it.
Yeah.
And not only do you need it, but they need you. You know, that's the other part, is like, the people in the church need our pain and our suffering to bring that to them, because as we just said, like, the trials of getting through hard seasons and doing it honestly and faithfully, not perfectly, like, other people need that from us.
Yeah.
Just as we need it from other people.
Yeah, amen. Well, we could probably talk about this all day. So by faith, right? So I'm excited to hear your sermon coming up, and we got Hebrews 12 after that. That's one of my favorite passages. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely. I mean, just such good stuff in Hebrews. So please join us when we are gathering in person, whenever that is. So glad that we're able to kind of have the discussion. So by faith, we're saying, let's walk together and figure out how we can encourage one another as we walk with Jesus. So we hope to see you soon. Thanks for joining for this. I'm kind of wrapping this up quickly. Just thought we'd have a little discussion that hopefully will be edifying to you guys. Let's keep the conversation going about faith, of what it means, how do we walk in it. We didn't even get into how does one get faith. Faith comes by hearing, the Word of God. Anyway, there's so much we could talk about. So, please come worship with us when we're gathering. Check your emails just to make sure you can kind of stay up to date with the weather. I know it was snowing a minute ago. It's supposed to snow again coming up, whether that's tomorrow or the next day. So just check your stuff so we can your email so we can keep you in the loop. Thanks for joining our time again, Josh Rothschild. And
you said it right.
Yeah. See?
Did you?
Did I?
I don't know.
I just said it quickly. I don't know if it was. That's the thing, is I got nervous. I think I said it wrong. So glad you could join us. We'll see you soon. Enjoy the discussion on Hebrews and faith, and we'll see you on Sunday.
See you on Sunday.
Someday.